paper. Nadhim Zahawi.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and it is a privilege and an honour to follow the honourable member for Kingston upon Hull North, and may I just commend her for her leadership of bringing Parliament together on this very important subject. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for allowing me to speak during this important debate about this such sombre and saddening topic. I rise to speak as the representative of a number of individuals in my constituency whose lives and the lives of those they love have been grievously, unfairly and irreversibly impacted by the terrible injustice we address this afternoon. The infection of individuals with contaminated blood has been apologised for by the Prime Minister on behalf of the Government, an apology which is now more than a year old for a scandal that is more than 20 years old. When he rightly addressed the matter last year, the Prime Minister said it was difficult to imagine the feeling of unfairness that those who have been affected must feel. My constituents and others around the country were let down. When they or their family members were at their most vulnerable, they were let down by the health service that was supposed to be there to keep them safe. It truly is difficult to imagine. But I'm sorry to say that the feeling of unfairness has not been lessened by the proposals in this consultation. If anything, it has been made worse. Lives have been changed and lives have been taken. So much has been lost, but the Government must now focus on lessening and mitigating this loss as much as can ever be possible. I will give back.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. On the subject of mitigating this loss, I'm here to represent several constituents who have an issue with this, but in particular one, Andy Gunn. Andy Gunn is extremely concerned by the comments that were, or the suggestion that was put forward by the Health Secretary that the funding for this might come from the NHS budget. Do you agree that would be highly inappropriate?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention. I've had similar representations from my constituents, and I hope that the front bench and the Treasury bench actually take on board those comments of Andy Gunn and others in my constituency. The vastness of the loss, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are addressing today is such that even the ideal solution cannot do much to address it. But what has been proposed does so much less. The proposals contained in the consultation are far from what the victims of this injustice expected or were led to believe they would receive. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know many of my colleagues on all sides of the House have similar stories to tell. I have had constituents visit my surgeries who have always been so incredibly strong about what has happened to them and hopeful for the potential of a good settlement from the Government, but have now been left in tears. They feel let down and fear that these proposals will make life even harder for them. These are people whose lives have turned out to be radically different to how they had planned them, through absolutely no fault of their own. They struggle to get insurance or pensions and have had their careers curtailed, stuff we take for granted in this place. Even worse, they have been unable to have children or have seen loved ones die tragically soon. These people should be helped and need to be provided with a full and final settlement that allows them to move on without being worse off. There remains much misunderstanding, Madam Deputy Speaker, about the medical conditions of the victims and the treatments available. The improvements in care for those with HIV/AIDS has been a blessing for many. However, the disease remains incurable, and if you are a haemophiliac or have other conditions such as Hep C, then you cannot take the medication that could help you. We must also properly consider those infected by more than one disease. Those with both HIV and HCV have a threefold greater risk of progression to cirrhosis or decompensated liver disease than those just infected with HCV. We should not misunderstand, underestimate or underplay the dangers of these diseases. Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituents and the constituents of so many of us here today have suffered a grave injustice. It's an injustice they never expected to suffer, would never have been able to prepare for, and for which the blame rests entirely elsewhere. And because of this, they or their loved ones have experienced terrible illness and their lives have been changed or ended. Unfairness does not seem a strong enough word to describe it. That word is the best we can do, and the Prime Minister was right to apologise. But this consultation does not go far enough. When my constituents only have to look north of the border to see a better deal on the table with talk about public monuments to those sadly lost, and are then faced with an option here that could leave them in an even worse position, anger and resentment are more than understandable. Of course, I'll give way.
Grateful to the honourable gentleman. Does he agree that there's a danger that the consultation will undo the good of the apology? It says in the impact assessment that the intention of the policy is to safeguard the interests of those who are chronically infected and receive an annual payment. But in fact, if that annual payment is no longer index-linked, and people have made their assumptions on that basis, like my constituent, Nora Tracy, she's had to take early retirement because she has Hep C. She's made her projections on the financial assumptions. If it's no longer index-linked, we're making a mockery of what it says in the impact assessment, and we're undoing the sincerity of the apology.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. I've heard similar representations from my constituents, and indeed, when we met as an APPG together, the representations were very similar across the board. I, again, sincerely hope that the front bench is listening today to those interventions. The Prime Minister said last year that, as a wealthy and successful country, we should be helping people more. We will help them more. I agree with him and support those words entirely. I hope that the Minister and the Department of Health will ensure that the settlement for the victims will meet the intentions of what the Prime Minister said last year. Thank you very much indeed.